And again, we're come full circle to the gray reality of Finland at the time.
Yeah.
Making the best decisions that you can for your land and your people. And they just they were going back and forth with relationships between two monsters.
Yeah. And I'll go back to there are no saints in warfare. I mean, everyone ends up making compromises or committing atrocities, and the winners get to determine who, committed atrocities and who didn't, whereas both of them probably did. Yeah, it's true of every war.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Season 2 of the Liberal Gun Owner's Lens podcast. I am Miyanovich, and I will be your pilot on an unprecedented ride through the most innovative and forward-thinking analysis of the relationship between humans and guns on planet Earth. The entire nexus between guns and public safety needs a wake-up call, and Liberal Gun Owners is here to rock that party. Are you somebody who thinks you know what's going on with guns and public safety? I don't give a shit. I'm dragging your ass into the future whether you like it or not. So, is there anything new or different going on over on the Russian side in the Winter War relative to rifles? Or they're just using the same shit?
They were using M9130s, which was the 1930 update of the M91 lawn rifle, and that was just slightly shortened, basically different sight, flat tangent sight. But slightly shorter, lighter, and then the M38 carbine, which was a 20-inch barreled version versus the 28-ish inch M9130. It's a little handier for the rear guard people, or not the rear guard, but artillery tankers and et cetera that don't need the big long infantry rifle. That was their primary rifles. They had the SVT-38, which is the Tokarev, and that's a semi-automatic. Most of them were. They had the AVT, which was an automatic version, which is very uncontrollable in 7.62x54. But the SVT-38 was the semi-automatic, 10-round detachable magazine, where the detachable magazine wasn't really intended like AKs or modern rifles to be, have 6 of them on your body and put them in. It was fed from stripper clips, but it was 10 rounds at a time, semi-automatic fire. So they had some of those. That was the biggest innovation, if you will, in terms of squad level rifles beyond the bolt action Mosin. But the majority of the troops had Mosin Nagant 5-round bolt-action rifles.
Yeah. What would the loadout be for one of these guys? Well, do you know how many rounds they would carry on them? Was there like a standard? Was it variant?
I'm not. Certainly the Russians, I think they had, two of the two-pocket ammunition pouches, which are 15 rounds per pocket, so at least 60 rounds. That would be the accessible. I imagine most would want to carry additional rounds in their pack or something like that, but I don't know. I don't have a good, Soviet era TO&E table or anything like that to see what.
Yeah, it's good to just have a general sense of what their loadout might be,
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is in the Winter War, the short of it is that the Finns lose. They go back and forth, they slug it out back and forth, but eventually they just become exhausted. Too many of them are killed, and they're overrun by the Russian way,
the Soviet way, which is you just throw bodies and equipment, and your leadership maybe doesn't have to be too great. Maybe your leadership sucks, but you're throwing so many bodies at the problem that you end up overwhelming whoever you're fighting. So the Finnish end up losing, and then they end up having to sign an agreement. It was the Moscow Accord agreement. Is that what it's called? The Moscow Accord. It's in here somewhere. I don't know if you know the name of it, John.
The exact term now. Moscow Armistice or something.
Yes, yeah. Moscow Armistice is what it's called. Yeah. So basically, we're going to leave the Russians, or the Soviets are like, we're going to leave you guys somewhat alone, but we under these certain conditions.
Yeah.
Right? And so it begins a period of peace. The Soviets get a portion of the Karelian Isthmus, and other conditions. The Finns, like almost immediately try to create a defensive coalition with Denmark, Sweden, and Norway because they're still worried about the big picture.
Yeah.
They're also worried about the Germans now as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's German encroachment. So you have any thoughts on just that little, when we go into the interim peace, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. And backing up slightly, I mean, the Finns, all along through the Winter War, were really hoping that either the Swedes would help them out in a more substantive way. I mean, they did help, and they had volunteers that came in, or especially the British, French would come to their aid too. But that never materialized because they were playing their own brand of realpolitik, and we'll probably need the Russian bear, even though we don't like them, to fight against the German, onslaught. So, I mean, the Finns were left out to dry, hung out to dry there, and then so in the 15-month interwar period, they were just mobilizing more people and trying to rearm, and seeing again, we have to work with the Germans if we're going to have any protection against the Russians. It's just the reality of the power brokership in Europe in World War II.
Yeah. And so we see, again, we're circling back to this. The Finland was not in a good position,
right,
and it has to do with their geography.
Yeah.
And so it's not as easy as, well, things are quite gray in Finland.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to put it. By spring of 1940, France had fallen, and Norway and Denmark were occupied by the Germans. So now you have Germany on one side, and you have the people that just whipped your ass that want to take over your country on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just 3 months after the conclusion of the Winter War that new reality in Europe had set in.
Yeah, and the Finns go, and they, this is where, interesting the interesting viewpoints that strict morality might bring to us, that the Finns create an alliance with the Nazis because, as an extension of Operation Barbarossa, which is the Nazis want to sack Russia. They want to take a part of Russia for themselves, for Lebensraum.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Finns create an alliance with the Nazis, and they collaborate together. And this takes us into the continuation war.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that transition there?
Yeah, I mean, this is where you start to certainly get into more controversial politics. Obviously, alliance with the Nazis is undesirable, to say the least. All you could say in defense of them again is, we're stuck between a rock and another rock.
Right.
Right. 15 months later, the Germans stupidly invade Russia, not having learned from Napoleon. And the Finns say, yeah, okay, fine, we want to retake our land, but that's about as far as we're going to go. So it's like they pretty quickly retake that portion of Karelia and up against the shores of Lake Ladoga. I think, a Russian town that might be more in the Alsace-Lorraine sort of analogy of France-Germany that's traded back and forth over time. But they didn't say, hey, we're going to, march on Moscow or help you take Leningrad. They just more or less, stopped on the northern and western side. But that certainly led to extreme supply problems for the Russians for Leningrad. So they were part of the, contributed to the awfulness of the siege of Leningrad in that way.
Yeah, there's a couple things that happened. We'll probably discuss the other one in a little bit that the Finns did that wasn't exactly a high moral behavior.
Yeah, no saints in warfare, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the Winter War and the Continuation War is it's a gray area. Like when you look at it, is the Continuation War really a part of World War II? Kind of. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But then also from the Finnish perspective, they're just trying to fight a different war, which is we just want our country, and
right.
That's already been a part of what they were doing anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly for them a part of everything else that's going on, but it kind of is too.
Right. I mean, it's unavoidable that it's part of it, but from their perspective, it was more like, well, we're just trying to right the wrong that was perpetrated in the Winter War.
Right.
Primarily.
Yeah.
But making a very unholy alliance in order to do so.
Yes.
So
there's a lot of, normally when we think of Finland, we think of, Laplanders and people cross-country skiing. And this was a pretty nasty, nasty situation that they were in. Like,
yeah.
Rare or unique.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to put that. And so, the overall weapons reality here is just basically the same. So that's why I want to talk a little bit more about the general history, because it's such a short period of time, relatively speaking, and we're basically just dealing with the same rifles on both sides, and the Russians and the Finns.
Yeah, I mean, the Russians, during the Continuation War, they would have actually had significant numbers of SVT-40s that follow on to 38, so more semi-automatic 10-round rifles. By then, they had started production of the PPSH-41, which was like a stamped submachine gun, much more rapid to produce, and that shot the 7.62 by 25. Pistol round, those in the Tokarev pistol, but a hot little 30 caliber pistol round out of the submachine gun. So they had those. The Finns certainly had the same, basically. Well, by then they had the M39, which was sort of the final battle rifle configuration of the Mosin lineage on the Finnish side, and that had the same, improved sight as the M2830 and a few other minor variations. But that's one of my favorite rifles to shoot. I shoot those a lot.
You have a few of those?
Yeah, I have a few of those. I mean, the Sako variant of VKT, and one that's also made by Sako but has the SKY, White Guard, Civil Guard designation on it. And then a later, a 1970 produced version. So, yeah, I love those. And the bayonet, which is, at least in the time that I bought those rifles, they were like $300 rifles, and the bayonet was twice that, because they're so rare.
If anybody out there listening has never shot any of this style of like the Mosins or the Mausers, these solid wood stock surplus rifles, it's an amazing experience, and the Garand as well. It's an amazing experience. It feels different from other things, and it's so solid when it hits. Such beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Such beautiful stuff. And they were giving them away for a song just 10 years ago. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Where's the price point now on like your average Mosin? And
well, they're all over the
Mauser?
place. I mean, M39s, the Finnish M39s are probably 700 to 1,000 now. Some variants maybe 12. You know, but in the SKY, the Civil Guard labeled ones are especially sought after. And B barrels, the Belgian barrels that were supplied to them. But, you know, there's all sorts of sub-variations and stuff when you get into the minutia. But M9130s, I mean, they used to be, I remember buying some of those refurbished Soviet ones that for like $99.
Yep.
Only, I guess, what was that, 9 years ago?
Yep.
I got a couple for $99, or maybe they might have been 89 because 2 for 89. Now they're $350 to $450, maybe $500.
Back in the days where people were like, I think I'm going to get a crate. Like, I'm going to go to buy a crate.
Yeah. 20 rifles, $80 a piece. You know, $1,600 plus shipping. It's not too bad.
Not at all. Back in the golden era, which we've discussed before. So the continuation war kicks off in July of 41 with Germany attacking the Russian front.
Late June. Barbarossa. Yeah.
So and then the Finns are initially pushing the Russians back in the Karelian Isthmus, and then they start to lose steam, and the Russians push back, and the Finns are basically drawing a new line, basically giving the isthmus up, but then they just dig in for 3 years of a defense. Yeah. Another slugfest and death. But this sort of forces the Soviet Union to say, maybe Finland's not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
They have other things they are worrying about.
Oh yeah.
And this back and forth over the Karelian Isthmus might not be in their best interest anymore.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was like the preamble of the Winter War. It was sort of, it was strategic, but it was almost tactical in the big scheme of things. I mean, it was just like the Germans would likely be a threat, to attack through the Karelian Isthmus, so we want to keep, that space. And when the Germans were now on the back foot and retreating towards Germany, this was less of a threat, even though there were some there up in Lapland, etc. So
yeah. So, and I had it wrong before. The Moscow Armistice is what they sign.
At the end of the Continuation War.
At the end of the Continuation War.
Yeah.
And so after that, the Continuation War, they basically lose again, kind of ish.
Yeah.
And but the Russian or the Soviets are like, you're more trouble than you're worth. They make them sign the Moscow Armistice. And as one of the stipulations of it is now the Finns need to get rid of all of the Germans that are in Finland.
Yeah, primarily in the north. Yeah,
right. And there's a mountain division. I can't remember which mountain division, the German mountain division. But so that's basically it. And so the Germans see the writing on the wall, and they're leaving anyway. They're leaving because they're going to go to Norway and take up positions there.
Right.
But while they're leaving, because the Soviets put the pressure on the Finns attack the Germans on the way out of the country.
Yeah. At first it was an orderly retreat, and the Finns just kind of like, okay, yeah, we're not on your side anymore. See ya. And the Soviets kept on like, hey, that wasn't the agreement. The agreement was you would actually attack them.
So they changed tack and they start attacking these Germans, mostly this German mountain division that's leaving and going to Norway. This is known as the Lapland War.
Right.
Which doesn't seem to be much of a war.
Right.
winter of 1944. And of course, all this shit's happening in the winter. God. So the war ends, the Lapland War ends basically when the Germans reach Norway, take fortified positions. That's November of 1944. And the Finns wash their hands of it.
Yeah. But the Germans, as a present on their way out, they follow the scorched earth policy and, torched villages and killed people and whatever, and the typical sort of Nazi
bullshit.
Protocol.
Nazi bullshit. So we're at November 44. That's the end of the Lapland War. The continuation war is 41 to 44, and the Winter War is 39 to 40. But the Winter War and the continuation war are just a fucking slugfest.
Mm-hmm.
With these rifles that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Mostly. The Lapland War is ugly, but it's a small thing. And we're getting a taste here, or a sense of what was happening in Finland, prior to 1939 when we were talking about the Finnish Civil War. So from the Finnish Civil War, do you have the exact date on the Civil War, John?
Not the exact date. I
range?
think it was 1917 and 1920.
Okay.
So yeah, it was only 19 years. Really their independence from Russia was from 1917. So 22 years later, they were like, Russia was knocking on the door again.
They're just recovering essentially, because 17 years is not a lot of time.
Yeah.
So they're recovering from their own civil war.
Right.
They have independence from Russia for a little bit, for a decade or so, and then they get into this mess for 6 years. So if we're not talking about Finland and their geopolitical reality during this time, and we're talking about the World War II, and people don't really have an idea of how nasty this shit was for them. Again, we think of the Finns as like they're probably eating salmon and Laplanders and skiing and saunas or whatever. But it was an ugly scene.
Oh, absolutely. World War II was ugly everywhere.
Yeah. What do you know? There's this tradition in Finland of the people being hunters and outdoorsy, and I would imagine there's still a lot of that around. Do you know much about the contemporary culture in Finland?
Not really. I know of Farostalika, the surplus, store and outdoor store, and they put on competitions, and so there's still certainly a subculture of gun ownership in Finland, and marksmanship and hunting and everything, and outdoorsy stuff, because it's a great, beautiful, forested, lake-rich country. Yeah, there's plenty of that still there, and I believe it's mandatory, short-term service for all Finnish males. I'm not sure if it's all Finnish females too, if they have to do military or an alternative or not. But certainly it's mandatory for males to get some training. It's a small country, and they have a big, burly neighbor,
Yeah. That's, again, acting like an ass or acting like itself, depending upon your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Russians have never gotten a break, from the czars to the premiers to the current despotic authoritarian president.
You would think that, it's a big ass border.
Oh yeah.
But I guess I thought in my lifetime I wouldn't be looking at a map again, and we would be having discussions about Poland and Belarus and St. Petersburg. But here we are.
Yep.
And we're fucking talking about it again.
Good old land war in Europe, and and now Finland's part of NATO, and
nuclear weapons now.
Yep.
It's quite interesting. So I did want to ask you also, the white camouflage, or first and foremost, didn't the Finns also have a version of the potato masher?
I don't know.
I
don't know about their grenades, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it's the Finns or somebody else. I have to look at it, but I figured I'd ask you. Because I wanted to get like a, decommissioned potato masher, but not a Nazi. I don't want a fucking Nazi potato masher. I wanted to see if somebody else made a potato masher. And there's one other country. It's a Nordic country. It's slipping my mind. So I just wanted to ask you. But if I'm going to get a potato masher for the office, that's the one I'm going to get. Yeah. Or I'll just build I'll build not the grenade part, John, but just the shell of it. Just build my own based upon, the basic details. But I do want to have a potato masher in the office. But if I am, it has to have it. I have to be able to say that's not Nazi. That's another kind of potato masher. I don't know what happened when I was a kid, obsessed with the potato masher. It never went away.
Yep. Yeah. Finnish M32 stick grenade. So they had one.
Okay, that's it. Defense. Okay. Now we know, John, what my next surplus piece is going to be.
Yep.
And when we're going to do, hopefully, maybe next year, we can do an entire episode on the potato masher or grenades or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll push you to get a grenade or two.
Yeah, I have a couple of demilled, U.S. ones and stuff, but nothing. Right. I haven't got into that collecting field.
I think we could do a cool episode on, or at least a portion, like half of a series on the grenades.
Mm-hmm. You think about love to do that. Hand grenades, and then rifle grenades, and how different countries, in some countries like the French really adopted the rifle grenade as a central part of their squad tactics.
So the Finns were using the white camouflage, right? Mm-hmm. And winter gear.
Yeah.
So out in the surplus market, is there any of that stuff available relative to their gear?
Not
at that time for the winter
World War II stuff. That's they're that dried up before I got into it. So I mean, there's some out there, but it seems to be in people's hands, and they're not letting go of it. There's definitely a good cadre of Finnophiles in the U.S. in terms of the milsurp and military collecting. So
but we would perhaps find pieces like the winter camouflage, whatever their coats or pants.
Yeah, I'm sure there's existing examples out there. They're just not something that the average guy is going to run into anymore.
Yeah,
like I said, this tunic I'm wearing is an M62, so 1962 style. That's the closest or the oldest I could find in terms of Finnish stuff.
Yeah. And just everybody missed it because when everybody's only listening, but when John clicked into the podcast, I had a helmet on and he had the M62 tunic on. And then he went, oh, wait. And he grabbed a helmet. There was a helmet right next to him, and he put a helmet on his head, and he's sitting in his kitchen.
And the Finnish helmet looks like the German one, similar.
Much like it's super Nazi looking.
Yep.
Much like the potato masher, very similar.
Yeah.
So do you have any other thoughts?
I found it remarkable. Well, one, the Finns were fighting on their own turf, and they knew it well. But, even with a 10-1 or whatever the advantage was of artillery on the Soviet side, the Finns had already, placed their artillery pieces in all sorts of different places and sighted them in different places so that they could not only harass the Soviets attacking, but also move their pieces quickly to avoid counter battery fire, which would lead to losses, of course, that they could not afford because they could not replace them. So the Finns were just very innovative and resilient and fought tooth and nail, like most any citizens, trying to defend their own homeland will. So it's a great David and Goliath story, especially the Winter War, which there is no, I don't know. I don't think there's any political cloudiness in that one that you get with the continuation war.
Yeah, I did read a little bit when I was reading up on Simo Hauha that eventually that Finland developed culturally some typical anti-war sentiment and looked back upon the veterans of the Winter War, the Continuation War, and the Lapland War, negatively, much like in America and Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
That became a reality for them.
Yeah. I'm sure they would have to struggle through that reality of having, allied with the Nazis, which were one of the most horrible regimes ever.
Yeah, and how could they have known potentially? How could they have known about the concentration camps? Maybe they did at the time. I don't know. I haven't looked that deeply into it.
Yeah, I don't know. When that certainly started to come out, but I mean, the concentration camps, the true death camps, were 42, 43 was sort of the height of their use, and then onwards. But certainly the Finns and the other, the Scandinavian countries, even the one, Norway, that was occupied, their Jewish population was relatively safe compared to the others, I suppose because it was too modest a size to deal with, and in the Finns' case, they maintained their autonomy, throughout. So, I mean, I'm sympathetic to the Finns, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna excuse their the fact that they were allied with the Nazis, because the Nazis were horrible. So
they were, and again, we're come full circle to the gray reality of Finland at the time.
Yeah,
making the best decisions that you can for your land and your people, and they were going back and forth with relationships between two monsters.
Yeah, and I'll go back to there are no saints in warfare. I mean, everyone ends up making compromises or committing atrocities, and the winners get to determine who, committed atrocities and who didn't. Whereas both of them probably did. Yeah, it's true of every war.